first group of speakers, like all good strikers, are travelling as a pack. You never do it alone. And they are Mandy Brown, Anne Cowie and Nadia El Yakubi, who have been on strike for 5.5 weeks at Lambeth College.
Thank you. So yeah, we're from Lambeth College, and we've been on strike, on definite strike action for 5.5 weeks, which is a total of 28 days of strike action. And we were also joined by Unison, who are our sister union in the college, for 5 days. And we've been on strike over our contracts, new contracts which have been introduced, which are just trashing our conditions. They're cutting 2 weeks off our holidays. They're making us work longer hours for no pay. They're reducing the sickness absence. It goes on and on. So we took strike action, and we just really like to thank everyone who has been so fantastic in supporting us, and the solidarity that our branch has been shown has been completely overwhelming. I know that many people here have invited us to speak at their branch. We've sent speakers. We've received £35,000 in donations from around the country. And the messages of support have been fantastic. I don't know if you've seen our wall of support on the UCU website, where people have been posting, and it's just the best thing when you're on strike to wake up in the morning and read the wall of support before you go to a picket line. And so yeah, we just want to thank you from all the members that have been on strike. As for next steps, we are going to be, obviously we're not striking over the summer, but we will be back, because the offer that was made to us was completely unacceptable, and the branch unanimously voted to reject the offer. And we'll be coming back and reballoting in the new academic year unless we receive an improvement on this offer. Shockingly, when this news was announced, our principal said that if we do reballot in the new academic year, he is going to shut down 2 of the departments in the college. One of them, yeah, it's an absolute disgrace. It would lose 40% of our funding if he was to do this, and the 2 departments that he's closing, one is ESOL, English for Speakers of Other Languages. The other one is LLDD, which is learners with learning difficulties and disabilities. So he's prepared to do that as an act of vindictiveness. Those are the 2 areas where the most strikers are. So it's obvious now to everyone that this is not about money. This is about him trying to smash the union, and it is completely ideological. We've already got 6 colleges, other colleges in London, who have pledged to walk out when we come back to reballot in September. Okay, so yeah, we've been speaking around the country, and we've been speaking at schools and colleges and hospitals and universities, and everyone has said the same thing to us. It's the same thing for them. What's going on at our college, what's going on in education is happening everywhere. People are working with their conditions being driven down, low pay being cut, bullying management, and it's the same vulnerable groups that are being attacked time and time again. Putting the squeeze on workers while they're happy to pay themselves even more. Our principal, he uses finance as a reason for putting these contracts through. Yet last year we found out he gave himself a 13% pay rise, which was that's £17,000 every year that he will get, which is as much as one of our hourly paid staff that was out on strike with us. So this is what's going on in the college. So yeah, we just want to say, please stick with us, because we'll be coming back in September for round 2.
Just something about the experience that we've had being on strike. We realised really early on that we needed to get everybody fully engaged. It's no good having people at home stressing and feeling guilty about their students. So we had lots of little committees and sent people out on the streets with petitions. We've been writing letters to MPs, lobbying. We've actually recently been hunting down our governors, which has been quite a good entertainment, and organising students' activities as well. But one of the most important things we've been doing is sending people out all over the country, speaking at workplaces, meetings, and meeting other activists. And at the beginning of the strike, there were about 5 people who were prepared to go and do that. So what we did, we wrote a script, sort of ideas for people, what people could say, and we sent each experienced speaker out with some trainees, people who hadn't done it before, and gradually people got more confident. And in fact, Nadia and I are in training today for our first big meeting, but. And it's just been amazing. We've had such solidarity from people, and it just inspires confidence. And we come back, and we're really excited, and we tell the branch what's been what reception we've had. And as well as that, it's just hearing what other people are doing. And we've been sharing platforms with other trade unionists and other activists. So it's instant politicization for the whole branch as well. So when we did come back to work this week, but I think we're a very different workforce from the one that went out. We're all speaking up for ourselves now, and we're going to give those managers a really hard time.
Hello, how I ended up on an indefinite strike, I don't know. It just, same thing that is making me talk right now to you. It just felt right at the time. What we got out of the strike is that teachers now are more confident to speak in front of other union members, other union branches. So there's we noticed a change from being passive, being told what to do, to being active union members. We also got to know each other, and instead of just the usual casual hi, we can now actually stop and have a proper chat about the real issues that we all share. We also got to know people like the Socialist Workers' Party's members from Brixton, and I just want to say a big thank you to Paul, his sons, Paddy, Louis, Ben, and Michael. We've been learning about the politics of education and politics in general, and we've been learning about management tactics using disinformation, bullying, and intimidation. We have gained a lot: solidarity, friendship, social and political awareness, things like that we totally forgot at work. So now we're coming back in the new academic year for round 2. And let me tell you that the principal is, I can't say that here, but, really, really scared. He's nearly like begging us, please, no, don't strike. So round 2 for Mr. Silverman, and we're coming back stronger because now, we're all, as Anne said, we're all politicized. So it's going to be harder this time for him. Thank you.
see, it's not just me who's the only giddy one here today. The next speaker we've got on the platform tonight is Sheila Coleman, who's from the Hillsborough Justice campaign. So, Sheila.
Thank you. Last year, I attended Marxism, and I shared a platform with Gareth Pearce. And when I was just thinking before of what I can say tonight, I was thinking how she actually plays a part in quite a few of the things that I'm speaking about. No surprise, really, to people who know her. I'm restricted what I can say around Hillsborough because there are ongoing inquests, and we have been threatened with contempt of court if we debate and discuss things. Those here tonight who know me know that I don't normally shy away from things, but equally I'm not going to be a scapegoat to the powers that be. As you well know, it took 23 years, following on from the disaster, for the government and for the state to acknowledge what people had been saying from 1989. That there was indeed a conspiracy and a concerted cover-up, not only by South Yorkshire police, but those above them. And that cover-up went right to the top. It was an establishment cover-up. When people like me were saying that back in 1989, you can imagine how we were perceived by a great many people. But the one thing that's always driven me is the truth. And I learnt a long time ago, it doesn't matter if you stand alone and people think you're crazy. If you believe in what you're saying and in the truth, then eventually others will fall into line. And I say that for a reason, because in terms of my involvement in Hillsborough over the many years, I've had the good fortune to meet a great many people who I have the utmost respect for in terms of their fight, which was very different in terms of what they entailed. And one such person who I would like to pay respect to tonight is Gerry Conlon, who died the other week. Gerry Conlon of the Guildford Four was a very dear friend to me, and I was extremely saddened by his death, his untimely death, a death that was caused by being robbed of the best years of his life. I attended Gerry's funeral over in Belfast, and what was amazing and what was heartening was just how welcoming people were made to feel within a working class community. And it so reminded me of my own family funerals where the doors open and people go in and the body's in the front room and do you want a cup of tea, girl? And all that was just so overwhelmingly powerful. But it was extremely sad as well. And those of you, and I'm sure there were people here tonight who did know Gerry, he had a tremendous, he was a tremendous charismatic person, but also had a tremendous sense of humour. And I know he wouldn't want anyone to be glum about his death. But equally, he didn't want to die. He had a lot of things to do because through the torture, after the torture he endured going into prison, coming out of it, he went through a torture on the outside and plummeted to terrible depths of depression and addiction. But he pulled himself out of it, being a strong character. And what he did then was just fight along with other people for other miscarriages of justice, people like Paddy Hill of the Birmingham Six. And the point I'm trying to make within all this is that the real issue around campaigns and miscarriages of justice is who dictates the narrative. And in the first instance, it's always establishment figures and the establishment that dictate the narrative. It happened in Hillsborough, it happened with the Birmingham Six and with the Guildford Four. And when I sat in St. Peter's Cathedral in Belfast, and in front of me was the Deputy Taoiseach, equal to the Deputy Prime Minister of Southern Ireland, and other government officials, I had to smile because Gerry would have smiled at that because he was never given great support from any state, even, you know, in Southern Ireland in the early days. Same thing with Hillsborough. People fall over themselves now, wanting a piece of the action. MPs, local MPs, jumping on the bandwagon, wanting, you know, they knew for many years. Well, they were very quiet about it for many years. The point I wish to make is that, and Gerry said this, and Paddy says it very often, their convictions came about because they were Irish. We all know that in the 70s, 80s, Irish people were a target, an easy target. Just as now, Muslims are a target. And Gareth Pearce addressed the congregation from the altar in the cathedral in Belfast. And when she said that, it heartened me that in a Catholic cathedral there was this eminent woman who clearly has such a passion for truth and justice, standing there arguing that Muslims of today are the Irish of yesterday. And let's not forget that. And I hope that as in the future I can come back here and speak of decisions made around Hillsborough which give us cause for celebration, because we're not going away. The pressure is on us now. There's a narrative now where it wants all to be nice and everyone's happy with what's going on. But the establishment reorganises to protect its own. We all know that. And what I would say in closing, because I know there are a lot of speakers, is Gareth Pearce is also the solicitor for Talar Hassan. I know that Hamza Hassan is over in America visiting his brother now. Let the legacy of Gerry Conlon be around supporting lesser-known campaigns for justice, one being the campaign around Talar Hassan, and the other being a campaign very close to Gerry Conlon's heart, and let this be a living legacy for him. The position of the Craigavon 2, who are imprisoned for murders they did not commit. They recently lost an appeal just before Gerry died. Gerry Conlon fought till his dying breath to free the Craigavon 2. I would ask you to go away and think of the lesser-known campaigns. And then the Friday night before the funeral on the Saturday, I was in a bar with many people, and when I looked around the room, I counted several hundred years of life and freedom taken from people by this government, by this British state. They weren't all high profile like the Birmingham 6 and the Guildford 4. Others were individual, lesser known cases. The only thing they had in common were that they were vulnerable adults, where it made it easy to lay the blame at their door. 25 years, 26 years. We can't let this happen. Let's, from these individual cases, these individual campaigns, build to a movement where we live in a British society, because this society now is one I don't want my grandchildren to grow up in. We have to make the change. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Sheila, for that. Our next speaker is Manjeet Kaur, who's an asylum seeker from Manchester. Manjeet, over to you.
Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me well. So we are here. We are celebrating Marxism. Yay! Yes. Well, I'm Manjeet Kaur. I'm from Manchester, and I'm seeking asylum. Since I've come here since 2011, it's been 3.5 years. And I'm chair of RAPA now, which is a human rights organization based in Manchester. And I'm originally from Afghanistan, and the reason I claimed asylum is because of writings of my husband, which was against government corruption and things like that. In those countries, you can't just write and be free. So this is the reason that I've come here. And when I came here, Home Office refused my asylum case, and in 2 weeks' time, I was on the threat of deportation, and I was on the threat to be on the streets. That is when Comrades and RAPA, which is a human rights organization, that came into my house, and they all holded a picket line outside my house and campaigned. So they stopped the eviction, and that was a victory, a small victory, but that was a victory in itself. And I received a call from Home Office. They were going to put me on accommodation, something which they refused me for weeks and weeks, which I was going through. So that's like, we are united, and when we fight, we definitely can win. It doesn't matter what. So that is something similar what we see in bedroom tax. People are being evicted, people are being put into destitute, difficult situations. And when I see comrades going and holding picket lines, I see myself. I try to go there and help people who are fighting bedroom tax. So that is similar. What they do with people seeking asylum, they are testing the waters. That's what, if they say, if we can put a woman in the wheelchair on the street, or if we can deport her, then we can do this to this person. So they're definitely doing it first with asylum seeker, putting them on vouchers, putting them on just on bare minimum survival, and they say, see, if they can do it, you can do it as well. So they try to divide us, and then, so we don't accept to be divided and to be ruled. We want to be united, and we can win, definitely. Now, it's been 3.5 years since I'm fighting asylum, and I've still not won, because the way Home Office system is built, the way the UK asylum system is built, it's like believes in not believing in people. So you are a liar, you are a criminal until proven innocent. The way you are interviewed, the way your appeals are being heard, my judge said that I don't find her credible enough, or I don't believe you. So I don't know what grounds to prove, what grounds to give, evidence to give to be proved. But it's just like because they don't feel like believing me today. One day probably they would, because they'll see. Yes. And the right wing's media coverage of people seeking asylum has led to them being scapegoated, persecuted, and attacked by far-right parties and racists. Asylum Support House has been privatized, and the private companies are running, which are running detention centers, which are running prisoners. So you feel as a prisoner in your own house. You're not allowed to have overnight guests. You're not allowed to even have a pet. If you're lonely, only because you're an asylum seeker and you don't have the right to be in this country. So the system is stacked against the person seeking asylum. Only this week, an inspection at a detention center in UK showed that staff blocked the useful website like Amnesty or the bail website, which can be useful for people in the detention centers. So these websites have been blocked, and it shows that since 2009, people in detention center they're being halved now. They don't have access to lawyers or anything. So the people, if you can't reach a lawyer, how can you supposed to be helping yourself in your asylum claim? Because they believe that when you are here, you need to show evidence that you are back home, you are not safe. Even though you are here, you have to produce evidence without a lawyer. Well, it's the same situation for people who are outside detention centers. Like for myself, you're bound to be destitute at some point. It doesn't matter whether you are safe or unsafe. So the system is really unfair. But I would say that when the going gets tough, the tough gets going. And together, united, we'll win. Yes.
very impressive audience participation going on tonight. However, we still have another four speakers.
Thank you.
Five. And our next speaker is Maz Saleem. Maz has come from Birmingham. She's the daughter of Mohammed Saleem, who was murdered on his way home from the mosque there last April, and Maz is going to talk about what her family have been doing.
Good evening. My name is Maz Saleem. I'm here today to talk about my father, Mohammed Saleem, who was brutally murdered literally on our doorstep on his way home from evening prayers at the mosque. My father was viciously stabbed to death 3 times by a right-wing neo-Nazi. Why? Simply because my dad was a Muslim and for no other reason. The devastation of the death of our father and our family has been overwhelming. To even comprehend what our father went through, bleeding to death on the road, is devastating, let alone to understand how someone could have such hatred for an 82-year-old man. The fact remains my father was targeted for being a Muslim. He was followed home and killed. Pavlo Lapshin from the Ukraine is serving 40 years for my father's murder and for the 3 mosque bombings in the West Midlands. These were all acts of terrorism, and he was charged under the Terrorism Act. Yet to this day, the media, the police, the government have not treated Pavlo like they would any other terrorist. Why? Because only Muslims are terrorists, right? Islamophobia is rife, and Islamophobic attacks continue to rise, fueled by sensationalized headlines run by the media, and also by the government's stance on treating all Muslims as terrorists. What hope is there for our kids and our generations to come if we don't make a stand against all forms of hate? Islamophobia needs to stop. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Maz. Our next speaker, I think, yeah, first man, actually, we'll let him on, is Ian Hodson, who is a member of the Bakers Union, the BFAWU from Hovis. And over to you, Ian.
Okay, thank you very much. And comrades, brothers, sisters, it's a pleasure to be here, and I offer you fraternal greetings on behalf of the Bakers Food and Allied Workers Union. I hope you have a great conference. I think today has been a pretty inspirational day for our class, for the Labour movement. I think what we've seen today, hopefully, is the awakening that we've been crying out for, awakening from the trade union movement to stand up and say, you know, we've had enough and it's time to stand back. I think the inspiration that's been shown by our public sector workers, who, by the way, shouldn't have to go on strike, when they want a day off, we should be granting them a public holiday. That's what we should be doing with the people who work in our public sector. We should be supporting them and giving them days off and calling them a bank holiday, because they dedicate their lives to making sure our children are educated, that our streets are clean, that our people are safe and healthy in their workplace, that when the fire brigade is called, they run into burning buildings and save people's lives. They shouldn't be told you've got to retire when you're 60, when you're likely to die. They should be supported. I haven't seen a minister run into any burning building, but they put their lives on the line for us, and we should say you deserve everything that you're entitled to. But obviously, what we see from this government, what we see in our streets, what we see and hear in our media, tells us we can't make a difference, tells us there's nothing we can do about it. Well, let me tell you, that's not true. We can do something about it. We can always do something about it. We might have forgotten what we could do about it, but you look at what we've achieved when we stand together, we fight together, we win together. Let me tell you, you wouldn't have equality in this country if we hadn't stood and fought. You wouldn't have made sure that the working class had the right to vote if you hadn't stood up and fought. So when they tell you you can't do anything, you remember, when we come together and stand together, we will win together. And let me tell you, because I'm really proud, and this story is very important to me, very important to my union, because our members were told at Ovis they couldn't win either. They were told, what's going to happen is we're going to make redundancies. That's what's going to happen. We're going to make redundancies. You're going to lose your jobs. But our members said, no, we're not going to accept redundancies. We're going to look for a way to keep our friends, our colleagues in work. So they did a deal. Obviously a mistake. They thought they were dealing with honourable people. But he did a deal. They did a deal. They cut the wages, they cut their hours. Within 48 hours of that company agreeing and accepting that, they then called the union in and said, sorry, deal's not good enough now, we need to make redundancies. And they announced redundancies. Announced redundancies after doing a deal with those people. What our members said, you know, this is completely out of order. And what made it even worse was in 48 hours of our members being sacked and leaving the workplace, they marched in zero-hour contract workers and agency workers because those dismissals were nothing to do with the need of the business. It was all about profit. And the problem you've got is when you see companies doing that, sometimes people think, well, there's nothing we can do. There's nothing we can do about it. We've just got to accept it. But they don't do that in Wigan. They don't accept second in Wigan. And let me tell you what happened. Let me tell you what happened. Because when they said to our members, well, there's nothing you can do about it, you just got to accept it. Our members did what trade unions have always done in the past. They remembered their history. They said, well, what we'll do is we'll have a meeting. Billy Hayes always tells us meetings are important, and he's right, because they had a meeting, and they told the company, we're not prepared to just sit back and accept that you're going to bring in zero-hour contract people and agency workers on less terms and conditions, and if you don't change your position, we're going to get a mandate, we're going to go out and strike. Well, to cut a long story short, because there's some fantastic people that you need to hear on this platform, our members said, you know, we'll give you this mandate, and we will go on strike. And when the company said, well, if you go on strike, we'll shut your factory down. And our members said, shut our factory down, because if you think we're having low-paid people in our workplace, then you've got another thing coming, because we're not going to allow second-class workers in here. All workers are first class, and we ain't allowing you to treat them as second class. That's what they said. So they went out on strike. So they said, you can't win. You can't win. So our members said, okay, we can't win. But you watch us come a great second. So if we don't win, you watch us come a great second. And our members went out on strike. Now in that factory, we had 180 members, 180 workers, because we were a closed shop, plus 24 zero-hour contract workers. Day one, 180 plus 24 zero-hour contracts on our picket line, manning those picket lines, standing side to side, because they knew this fight was for them. They knew that they were going to stand there with those people who were prepared to lose money on their behalf. So that's what they did. And on the first week, that company said, you know what, we didn't think you'd do it. But you see, your 24 zero-hour contract workers, we're going to make them permanent on the same terms and conditions as everybody else. So when they say striking doesn't work, you say look at Hovis, because striking does work. Now they says go back to work. Everything's been sorted, and said, oh no, it hasn't. We've got agency workers. They're on less terms and conditions. They're going to be put on zero-hour contract workers. So until you've done something to sort that out, we ain't coming back. And the company said, you will give in. We ain't going to give in to you. You will give in. So if you go out there again, you're going to lose. And then they offered people £1,000 across our picket line. And our members said this, £1,000 across a picket line? I might be broke for a few weeks, but I'll be a scab forever. And Mark Harding was right. You cross a picket line, you're a scab. You're a scab. And on the second week, let me tell you this, because our members went back on the third week with their heads held high, because everything they asked for, the company gave them. That's what happens when you strike. That's what happens when you take them in. You win. So don't believe when they say we can't do anything. Our movement is the backbone of this country. We can change this country to make sure that people have a fair and just society and live in an aspirational society where people can enjoy life getting better. So please, everything you can do to support whatever industrial action like the Lambeth, like the Ritzy workers, is critical. To support and call on the TUC to call that day of action, and let's have a general strike and let's change our country for the better. Solidarity.
I think there's a few of us here definitely liking the idea of a public holiday for public sector workers as a regular feature. Once a week. Obviously, it's been a real privilege to share a platform with everybody who's spoken so far tonight, but I feel particularly honoured to be up here next to our next speaker, who's come all the way from Marikana in South Africa. I think possibly. I feel it would be rude not to actually introduce him. So I'd like to welcome Makhanya Siphamandia.
Okay, thank you, comrade. Ngiyabingelela. I'm greeting everyone on this evening. I say Tamandla. Comrade, firstly, my name is Makhanya. I'm come from South Africa. I'm the mine worker. I've been working for 12 years working on the mine. I've been in a striker for 5 months. I'm part of leadership. We've been leading the 70,000 workers who have been on the strike in Marikana, Lone Mill, Anglo, and Impala. Comrade, firstly, I will thank everyone, different country, people from UK, people from London, France, Germany, for the support that we have given the workers in South Africa. Comrade, during our strike, firstly, I can mention that workers have a power. In the first month, we went to the strike, we are about 81,000. Second month, there was some challenges where you can find the companies threatening people with SMSs. The company tried to decolonize the union AMCO that is organizing workers in the Platinum Belt. When we moved to 3 months, workers, they will start to get angry. I remember they said, now is enough. They moved to 4 months, they said, now is too much. But they reached a stage when they said, now it's too late, we can't retreat. So the government and the companies, they were trying to defeat our strike by all means. And this strike, it was a continuation of the strike of 2012. I've been here last year telling you that we're going to the strike this year. It will be more than the 2012 strike. Even this year, the workers, when I leave coming in UK, they said, go and tell these people that the bullet of the R5 and R6 is more than weak than the spirit of the mine worker. Comrade, they mentioned clear that 20% increase that we have got of salary adjustment to them is not a winning and is not a defeat, but is a good retreating position. meaning it's not the last strike that we went. There will be another strike, because today, if you can meet our colleagues who have been killed on 2012, they can still ask us, where is 12,500? But you can respond them and say, yes, we got 1,000, which will be 3,000 in 3 years, but we are about to got this 12,500 that we have been died for. Comrade, as a union, what we have realized, because there was more challenges in the strike, they've arresting leadership. I've been also arrested for 3 weeks, 21 days in jail for this strike. What was important to us as a union and as workers, we realized on this time it is more important when you have soldiers to have the coward and the warriors around you, because they always, the coward, they will show you the dangerous when it's coming. In the point of the workers to take 1,000, they were not happy to take 1,000, but they say, we need to retreat with some reason of seeing other colleagues amongst ourselves who try to return back to work with some threatening from their families. Because the company, they were starting to beat people with hunger. It's where we realize your support. We have people who are supporting in companies, individuals, fund, trying to get food, Give of the Givers, DLF, all these people, comrades who were donating on this strike, they take this striker forward. They take this striker, this 5-month striker being successful. Without you, we were not going to win. We realized the support even from South Africans, poor families, even the white, they come and support our struggle. But comrade, what was important from the workers, they said the struggle must continue, the working class must continue, and this power that we're talking about, that if we are together, we can win. The workers in South Africa, they test it, they feel this power now. Because this strike, it was not only a striker for platinum mines. In South Africa, it was a strike who was going to motivate every working class. The result of it currently, NUMSA is on the strike, because they get motivated from the strike that have been made by the mine workers from the previous 5 months. 5 months, it was not, the attention of 5 months, the workers, they said, when we strike, we must not strike just to make the capitalists or the bosses feel the pain. When we strike, we want to get attention. When we strike, we must get what we need before we return back to work. They were saying 5 months is nothing, we must carry on. If it's supposed to be 12 months, let it be so. Because it was too much suppressing by the same government, known as the black government, but it's just the administration is the same as the apartheid government. The intervention of the government on this strike was not, they were not supporting us. Also the government will come and say they must recognize the union, show clear that they were not in the same hand. One of the problems that I've realized in the working class, we need to unite workers. We realized that only AMCO was addressing this issue, not getting a support from other unions. So we have bigger unions like NUMSA, EFF, and AMCO. If they can join together, maybe we can take South Africa somewhere. And then when you look from the challenges who come from the previous unions who have misled workers, they're on the same bed with management on this time. We defeat them, but it was not easy, because when we negotiate in the first month, the management, firstly, before they put an offer on the table, they refuse to put a better offer, because they feel that if they can give us a better offer, other unions will fall down, the previous unions like NUM. So it was more challenging. We have people who have lost their life also on this year. So when maybe you combine the figure of from 2012 of 34 miners have been killed in the same day, 10 in other days, and this strike, we have almost 41 people who have lost their life on this strike that we have been. But the workers, they said, no, we don't mind with those people who want to kill our brothers. But at the end of the day, there is no amount of threat that they can make to defeat our strike. They said, we are waiting, maybe our families, our wife can leave us, or our child can have some challenges. But they further said, if their wives can go after the strike, I will go and take another wife. If the child can die after the strike, I will go and make another child. So that was a commitment from the mining people. They said, we can't retreat no matter what. It was too much from the government suppressing us, from the bosses suppressing us. So, comrade, we said, viva the mine workers, viva. Comrade, we say forward with socialism, forward. Forward with a living wage, forward. Comrade, the only things that workers have taught me on this strike as a leader, the working class or the workers never short with power. The workers, they were short with leadership. So, comrade, I will repeat again, thanks to everyone in any country who have been supporting this strike. I guarantee you, it's not the last strike. It's not the big strike. There will still another big strike to come from the next 2 years. Now we're going back to the ground. We say we need to organize more, because when we are many, it's where we can have power. So from the next strike, we said AMCO must be a demand in the working place. Because as a union, as AMCO, this time we have realized it's the only union we have addressed the issues of workers without fearing any political party, without favor of any company, and without compromising with the right of the workers. So that is one thing that I've liked from the AMCO. So we said when you go back, we need to push EFF, NOMSA, and AMCO in the same boat. So when you go to the striker, maybe it will be the bigger striker than the previous strike of 5 months, because when we are divided, it's more the company get the advantage of defeating the workers. But the workers, they've teach us a practical strike, not at school. They teach us that only if we are united, we will never be defeated. There was a slogan from the guy beside us. Okay, I thank you, comrade. For the sake of time, thank you.
Thank you for that, Makhanya, and I'm sure a lot of people in this room will have helped with the fundraising for the strikers in Marikana. And I'm just going to hand over to Simon Hickman, who's got a very important announcement to make about fundraising as well.
Yeah, good evening. I'm a firefighter from Greater Manchester. And a proud SWP member. Most of us here know how important the party is to the working class struggle. This paper is probably the only one that's told you these stories. You won't see it anywhere else. And from there, we've built the struggles. We've assisted them with United Resistance, with the Bakers Union. We were down there from the start. I think it was a member, SWP member from Wigan, was the first woman to stop the trucks coming out. That's what it means. That's what it means to be part of the Socialist Workers' Party. If you look around, you see all the posters of the campaigns we're involved in, what we stand for. Thing is, this paper, those posters, the placards you see on demonstrations, they all cost money. We've got no big backers. We're proud to say we've got no big backers. Our backers are the working class. That's you. Please put your hands in your pockets and donate as much as you can to make sure that our work continues.
Thank you very much for that, Simon. And buckets are going round. Obviously, we do want to keep the rally going, so that does also mean keeping the collection as silent as possible as it goes round. And I think you all know what that means. We seem to have a background noise of both buckets and bells. Whilst the collection is just going round, before I get the next speaker, can people settle down, and can I just remind people to fill out the accommodation request forms on their seats? That is very urgent that you do that, and they can hand them in. You can hand them in to people wearing the team T-shirts as well as you when you leave the room. But please use this time just to do that as well. Okay. You're offering sofas.
No. Yes, we've all been sleeping on a sofa. There's been 3 of us on it, so I was like...
Okay, have the buckets nearly finished? Yeah. Okay, I think the buckets are finished. If you can just collect them just outside the door, that would be helpful. We've still got a couple of speakers left in this evening's rally. Like myself, the next speaker spent today on strike, so we are both slightly tired, but very, very happy. And she's Jess Edwards. She's the Joint Secretary of Lambeth NUT, and she's also a primary school teacher in the borough. So, Jess.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I mean, for anyone that was out today, or that wasn't and seen it on the news, there's no doubt it was a magnificent strike today. There was such a determined and really, really angry mood on there, but also what you felt, as you feel on all strikes really, is that enormous sense of liberation, that beginning to fight back against all the rubbish that is thrown at us from this government can give you a real sense of joy, of freedom, almost of jubilation. When you looked around the march, especially the bit I was in was full of young, mainly primary school teachers and vast majority women who, a lot of whom, even though we've been out on strike quite a lot, were on strike for perhaps the first time or maybe the second time in their life. And I'm really proud of the NUT and of the role that we played in that demonstration today, and of making that demonstration so vibrant. But I think what really made me proud today was, for the first time since 2011, to be standing and fighting back alongside our colleagues at work, our teaching assistants, our kitchen staff, the premises staff, and all of the other people that keep our society running, the firefighters, the social workers, the people that work in the benefits office, all of the people really who make this the kind of society that we want to live in. And, you know, I've said that we've been out in the NUT a number of times now, but the story was very much one that we were out with all of those other unions, and we need a lot more of it, don't we? We need a lot more days like today. And of course today was about pay, because we've seen our pay fall in real terms by 18%. If the sort of money that, if they took it directly from your pockets, perhaps we would have had lots more strike action even sooner. But they don't. They do it through giving under inflationary pay rises. But today was about far more than pay, and I'm not going to talk about all of the other things very much, but I do want to talk about some of the reasons why teachers were out on strike, because it's what I know about. And there's 2 phrases if you want to know what makes teachers really angry. The first one is car phone warehouse. I want to talk to you about that. and the second one is Trojan Horse. And I'm going to talk about Carphone Warehouse. Carphone Warehouse, the founder of Carphone Warehouse, a Mr. David Ross, a Tory multimillionaire, a man who donates millions of pounds to the Conservative Party, is in line to be the next chair of Ofsted, the man who will be in charge of inspecting our schools. A man who knows nothing about education is going to tell teachers how to teach and how they ought to educate children. A man whose charitable trust, I said charitable trust, runs already over 20 academies. We have an education secretary that is perfectly happy, well, not just perfectly happy, that pushes selling off our schools to these parasites in our society, people like Harris and people like David Ross. This man is a former tax exile, and his last party guest at his house was Rebecca Brooks. That's the reason why we've been out on strike today. Secondly, I want to talk about Trojan Horse. I want to talk about the whole Trojan Horse affair, really, because when Michael Gove writes a book called Celsius 77, with a chapter in it called Trojan Horse, you have to be a bit suspicious when 2 years later a dossier appears called Trojan Horse about an alleged Islamic plot to take over Birmingham schools. And when he sends the anti-terror police into our schools to police our teachers, our kids, and our school governors, you know it's not about an extremist plot, but rather it's about the fact that he hates the fact that Muslims in this country have anything to do with education at all, and he wants them out. And he wants to use Ofsted, again, as a political tool to do that. And I'll talk about a couple of examples of what they did in Birmingham, because it's really disgusting. An Ofsted inspector, a woman Ofsted inspector, tried to shake hands with a teacher, a Muslim teacher, who said, for religious reasons, I don't shake hands with members of the opposite sex. Now, people in my staff room said, would any of us want to shake hands with an Ofsted inspector? But for that to be used as evidence of some kind of extremism in our schools is absolutely disgusting. For an Ofsted inspector to sit and ask children, Muslim children, are you homophobic? Don't you feel intimidated sitting next to a boy is Islamophobia in its most extreme, and it has to be absolutely opposed. And if you want any more convincing that the drive behind this whole story was racism, just think about the hypocrisy. There are 52 schools in this country, academy schools, that teach something called the Accelerated Christian Curriculum. That Accelerated Christian Curriculum is about teaching children evolution, not about evolution. That evolution is a lie. It's about teaching creationism. The truth about the schools in Birmingham is these were secular schools. These were secular schools that are paying the price now for doing what all of us would do, for what all decent people would do, working in Muslim communities, giving kids a day off for Eid. Having a prayer room like we have here at Marxism that children can use. There was a story flying around that one of the schools had spent £70,000 on a call to prayer sound system. Of course, this wasn't the truth. Once you dug behind it, they'd invested £2,000 in some new speakers that they used for all of the school's announcements, including saying that the prayer room was now available for people who want to pray. Allowing children fasting, to make allowances for children that were fasting for Ramadan. The attack on those schools is an attack on all of us everywhere that upholds the multicultural values. It's an attack on every anti-racist everywhere. And it's where being a socialist really counts, I think, because we have to throw ourselves in not just to fighting for our terms and conditions, but fighting to stand with the oppressed, fighting to stand with those at the sharp end of a racist attack, wherever they may be. And Gove's assault on education goes further. from writing the curriculum himself. I mean, there's somebody from the Department for Education here, a really good person, who I'm sure will fill you in at some point about goes direct intervention into some of this stuff. The continued denigration of teachers all the time, the imposition of performance-related pay, a system of pay that rather than encouraging teachers to cooperate, to get on well together for the benefit of the children that they teach, encourages them to compete against each other, encourages them not to share ideas, encourages them to look over their shoulder and see who's not so good and who ought to be getting the pay rise, and giving some people a pay rise at the expense of the vast majority of teachers. And now we've got another attack coming, haven't we? Because what's the news today? It's about they're going to take away the right to strike. It's about they're going to say the rolling strikes, the fact that we've had 4 strikes over the last couple of years is not right, and they're going to take away the right to rolling action. And it means that today can't be the end. It has to be the beginning of a renewed assault on the government. I have to... We'll have to go back in the autumn with a really determined plan to escalate our action. And I just want to say, I'm really proud that I've been on strike, 4 times over the last couple of years. But there is a debate going on in our union movement, isn't there? And there's a debate going on certainly with the NUT about, do we want protest action? Or do we want to win? And if we want to win, what are we going to do to be able to do that? So when Unison talk about having a further 2 days in the autumn, we have to hold Unison to that. And not only do we have to hold Unison to it, we have to fight when we're members of other unions, we have to fight to make sure that our unions join that action. But we know that a further 2 days is not going to be enough as well. And what today gives us a glimpse of is what is possible when everybody comes together. And we can't have it snatched away from us. We're going to have to fight, redouble our efforts to make sure, to make sure that that the strike movement builds and continues to win. So solidarity.
Okay, Simon mentioned all the socialist work is the only place where you can hear a lot of these kinds of reports and arguments. So our final speaker for the rally tonight is the editor of Socialist Worker, Judith Orr.
Thank you very much. What an inspiring platform it's been this evening, and I agree with Liz, it's an absolute privilege to be with the people here this evening. And I just think, we can go away from this, but I think there's one thing that everybody here can do, because I think that listening to the Lambeth strikers and what an inspiration they've been, that if that boss wants to play with a service that he's meant to be serving the local community, and he's going to use that as a political football to try and break the union, that all of us here have to say, your fight is our fight. They cannot be left alone. It's about the right to strike. If that's what he wants to make it, then everybody needs to go back to their trade unions after this and say, watch what's happening in Lambeth and give them every single solidarity, because it's a working class principle. And it's a working class principle we saw in spades today, didn't we? What a magnificent day it was. It disappointed some people, though. I don't know if people saw one of the Tory pundits whining away in the Financial Times. He said today, this was on Tuesday, it's going to be like every recent spasm of Labour militancy. It'll advertise only the union's inability to disrupt national life or discomfort the government. Well, I'd say closing thousands of schools, town halls, fire stations, shutting down some tunnels, 3/4 of the port of Portsmouth, and even the Wallace and Gromit Museum is disrupting national life, don't you? 1.5 million workers came out today, and honestly, working as Socialist Worker today was a pleasure. The phones were ringing, emails, Twitter, everything. People sending in their reports. Over 40,000 people marched and demonstrated in towns and cities across the country. And just a little plug, we'll have a 4-page special available first thing tomorrow, selling at Marxism only. But you see, the thing is, when we pose this, a strike like today, we're not just posing it around one issue. It's about everything, isn't it? And again, they don't like this. The Daily Express, they whined on as well yesterday. They said if the unions are going to mount a mass protest against the economy, against what the Tories are doing, they ought at least to give us an idea of how they would prefer the economy to run. If they want fat pay rises for their own members, can they please tell us what other areas of government expenditure they'd like to see cut? I can think of a few, can you? Well, there's that gigantic aircraft carrier that they launched by the Queen only last week. There's the Queen. Why not throw in Trident? And that's just for starters, isn't it? And if a few of you have got your own ideas, take them up on their offer. It's emailing jeff.marsh@express.co.uk. But you see, I think the important thing about today was to show the working class is still here and still fighting. Many people were disappointed, weren't they, at the end of 2011, when a magnificent strike really was allowed, the momentum was allowed to go, and the union leaders let it go. And I think we know that today will not be enough on its own. We fought hard for this strike. In some places it was difficult because of people feeling let down before. We fought hard, but the momentum can get going again. I agree with the other speakers that actually it both shows the level of bitterness against the Tories that we were able to get more strikes. But time and again, people said this isn't going to be enough. And the reports say the biggest cheers for the platforms came when people said we need more, we need longer, we need more workers, private and public, all out together come this autumn. You cannot just turn on protests. Strikes shouldn't be protests. Strikes about industrial action that can hit and hit hard and make a difference. And they say, you know, if they think we're so ineffectual, why do the Tories want to try to stop public sector workers striking if we were so ineffectual? And the thing is, you see, about this government, it's on the back foot, but it should be more on the back foot, shouldn't it? Not just about cuts and austerity, but look what's just been happening this week. I mean, they are being rocked to the core by what's being revealed about the scandal and the cover-up over child abuse, aren't they? And this goes right to the heart of the British establishment and the ruling class. Only a week after, remember, the spin doctor to the Tories, David Cameron's buddy, Coulson, has been put into prison. There feels like a filthy stench coming out of Parliament in Westminster, don't you think? Of corruption and cover-up. And it's not just Parliament, it's every institution of the British establishment is implicated in this. They can't even find somebody to lead the inquiry that isn't in some way implicated in this. And then you find that people like the party whips and the spooks from MI5 and all the rest of it, all of them knew about this stuff, but instead of exposing it and doing something about it, they used it to try and blackmail people so that they would do what they wanted in positions of power. I mean, really, the House of Cards and those things, they don't make it up, do they? They actually, reality can be more horrifying. What sort of people are running this country? What sort of people would do this? I mean, really, we're only still learning the extent of Margaret Thatcher's best friend, Jimmy Savile, aren't we? And the Tory Tebbit pops up again, doesn't he? To say, yes, indeed, there must have been a cover-up. Well, I tell you what, if there was a cover-up, Tebbit knows about it, because he was part of it. People might not have read Edwina Curry's autobiography, and she's the same Tory, by the way, who appointed Savile to effectively run Broadmoor to help break the prison warders' union. She wrote in her autobiography that Tebbit was told that Margaret Thatcher's private personal secretary, who's also deputy chairman of the Tory party, was a child abuser. So these are not people on the margins of the ruling class. These are people whose rotten history is being exposed to the light, and they're absolutely terrified. They want to ride this storm out, but I tell you what, it could still bring them down. All they're interested in is keeping their edifice intact. And I tell you what, we saw that only a week before, didn't we? Because the hacking trial, it's not really about hacking. It's not just about the Cameron and Rebecca Brooks cantering off and borrowed police horses together. It's about something much more serious, isn't it? And really, the things are all linked about the British establishment. It's about corruption and collusion with the politicians, the police, the media, not just Murdoch, but he's the worst of it, that goes to the heart of the British ruling class. And there's still questions unanswered about things that we've written about and spoken about at Marxism. For instance, the murder of Daniel Morgan, killed just before he was about to expose the depth of police corruption. And then only a week later, after all this, you get the sickening sight of every single mainstream political leader posing with that filthy rag, Murdoch's filthy rag, the Sun. How could he do it? What sort of Labour leader would do such a thing? Quite rightly, the people of Liverpool, and Sheila's had to go, but refused to buy and let the thing be sold. But instead of sucking up to billionaire Murdoch and the likes of him, why isn't Miliband out there raging against poverty and austerity and all the rest of the attacks on our side instead of sucking up to the rich? But the fact is, what Ed Miliband is trying to do, he's trying to prove that he will look after the rich and punish the poor just like the Tories do. That's what that was all about, isn't it? That's why he said he was going to snatch benefits from 18 to 21-year-olds just to show how tough he is, pick on some of the most vulnerable. It is a disgrace. It is a disgrace. Because you see, you look at poverty in Britain. The richest 5 families in Britain are wealthier than the bottom 20% of the entire population. That's 12.5 million people. Yeah, it is crazy. And I mean, you know, the Tories try and pretend they're normal. Do you remember they started this little thing showing how many working class people they had in them? They called it the Party of Opportunity. They had to stop because they didn't really find any. And George Osborne, he tries hard to try and pretend he is, and he even spent £3,000 of public money to go to RADA so they could teach him to talk less posh. That's, you know, that's the extent of what they think is important. But actually, to the people that don't have to pretend to be poor, i.e. all of us in the working class, they are ruthless, aren't they? I mean, Ian Duncan Smith says poverty is not caused by lack of money. Well, tell that to the people of Stoke-on-Trent. Recent weeks have seen in Stoke-on-Trent malnourished children going through the bins to find scraps of food to eat. In Britain, in the 21st century, we are the 7th richest country in the world. Yet in Britain, 5.5 million adults go without essential clothing, 1.5 million children live in households that can't afford to heat their homes, and 1 million people use food banks. And when the Trussell Trust, the people who run most of the food banks, spoke out against government policies recently, do you know what happened? One of IDS's ministers, Andrew Sellis, Tory MP, he threatened them saying, stop attacking our policies or we'll have you closed down to the food banks. This is a man who's never needed a food bank. I mean, he's not only got his salary as an MP of whatever it is, 66 grand, whatever it is they earn nowadays, but it was discovered during the expenses scandal that he claimed 55p for a cup of Horlicks in the tea bar of the Houses of Westminster. How dare they? But one thing drives them, and it also drives Labour right behind them. There's a theme here, isn't there, about Miliband and Labour, is that their system is in crisis and they're determined to make us pay. That's what it is, isn't it? Right around the world, not just in Britain. It's a global system, a global crisis, and globally the ruling class want to make us pay. And actually, here it's tough, but in other countries, it's actually the difference between life and death, isn't it? The size of the rally in London today was almost 20,000 people. 22,000 people, children, die every day, not due to complicated illnesses that they haven't found cures to, but because of poverty. That's as many people that were in Trafalgar Square today every day. 80% of all humanity on the whole globe live on just over £5 a day. That is what the system means. That is what crisis means. That's the price that's being paid by so many of us. But there's always one thing they can find money for, isn't there? It's war. Yeah, in 1997, they did a study. If 1% of the world's military budget was used for education, every child in the world could be sent to school by the year 2000. Do I need to let you into a secret? It didn't happen? It didn't happen. And if you look at the warmongers at home, and it's not just about that great big aircraft carrier that cost 6.2 billion, that hasn't even got any aircraft yet. It's about the warmongers. They have no shame, do they? I mean, again, another bad penny, like Tebbit pops up, Tony Blair. Taking a break, doesn't he, from his £6,000 a minute public speaking. None of us are getting that tonight, by the way. Or now he's advising the military leadership in Egypt about how to, you know, get some investment opportunities while they butcher protesters. He's trying to tell us that we should bomb Iraq and Syria into the bargain. Not content with destroying the country one time, he wants us to go back and destroy it again. They have absolutely no shame. Iraq, it's facing collapse, isn't it? The West constantly trying to make it like it was a great victory for them. But actually, what's interesting is, and there'll be meetings about this at Marxism, people should go about imperialism, because it both shows the power of America and the West, but actually also shows the limits of its power. I mean, it has a military budget the equivalent to the next 10 countries, but in actual fact, it's actually not able to impose its will as much as they want. They're now having to ally with Iran, who was one of the axis of evil, remember, in order to hold up their rotten little sectarian government in Iraq and use it as an ally. And remember, Bear and Bush wanted to bomb Iran, didn't they? We had placards, don't bomb Iran. But now they have to use them as an ally. But I think it's important to point out that they didn't bomb Syria. They didn't bomb Iran. Now, why was that? It was because of people like you and me and people, millions of us in Britain, who marched and protested against the war. We didn't stop the war in Iraq, but we clipped the wings of the war hawks so they couldn't do everything we wanted. And I'm proud of our role in that. And I tell you what, don't let anybody ever tell you that demonstrating doesn't make a difference. And now we'll have to do it again, won't we, about Palestine? I think we have to be ready to do it. Israel wants to go out again and crush the Palestinians. We know all about the 3 Israelis who were killed. We know their names, their families, their futures, their grief. But now dozens and dozens of Palestinian children are being murdered as we speak in Gaza. What about their families, their plans for the future, their hopes and dreams? The imperialists don't care about those. They don't care anything about the victims of their wars. They're only interested in pursuing their own interests. And I tell you what, when the people talk about the world being a more dangerous place, it's the West's wars that have done that. And the thing is, you know, when you look at it, and it's interesting, there's another theme that's come through tonight's rally. The warmongers want to distract from their war crimes. And how do they do that? By starting another war in Britain, and it's a war on Muslims. It's a war that began on the war on terror, but it's actually intensifying now. And Blair made it explicit. In the same place that Blair said we should bomb Iraq again, he, in the same sentence, said we suffer from Islamism around the world, Boko Haram in Africa, and we've seen it in the Birmingham schools as well. In the same sentence, a group that's kidnapped hundreds of children, hundreds of girls, with the schools, which is a plot that there's been no evidence found for it, and people have described, is just based on trying to scapegoat and demonize Muslims. They want us to see Muslim primary school children as a terrorist threat now. And this is really only part of the picture, isn't it, of the whipping up of racism that we've seen by mainstream politicians over the recent years and the media. We've seen it across Europe. We've seen it in the election results, haven't we, across Europe? Though in Britain we did have something to celebrate, didn't we, with the European elections. I do think we have to pay credit to Unite Against Fascism and all the activists in the Northwest that got rid of that vile Nazi, Nick Griffin. And we pushed back the English Defence League. But I tell you what, we cannot be complacent, not about the fascists, but nor can we be about the fact that the mainstream politicians have created the situation now where attacking immigrants is seen as normal and actually going on the back of the Islamophobia. And so racist UKIP, a product of the mainstream, it's not of the margins, a product of mainstream politics, is something that we're going to have to attack and we'll have to protest in Doncaster in September. But it's fueling a racism that's corrosive in national politics, and it can divide our class, it can pollute politics, and we have to stand up against it. And so I am absolutely proud of our paper of Socialist Worker, to work on a paper and to be in a party that says that people are punished for being Muslim, that says Roma are welcome here. You will not see any other paper of the right or of the left with front pages like those. You see, because sometimes it's not easy. That's not necessarily an easy front page to always hold, but actually being a socialist is not about being popular all the time. What Lenin, the Russian revolutionary, said, we have to be tribunes of the oppressed, and that's what we in the Socialist Workers' Party are. And therefore, all the time you have to stand up for those who are most vulnerable. The more difficult it is sometimes, the more important it is. But you see, we can go on and on now, really, about how bad things are. What's wrong with capitalism? What's wrong with the system? Exploitation, crisis, war, and imperialism. The question is, what are we going to do about it? How are we going to change it? Is it possible? And you look around and you think, well, I remember the 2011 opening rally of Marxism, and it was full of hope. Hope about the Arab revolutions, hope about the wave of mass strikes across Europe against austerity. There was a vision of what was possible. But the picture does look different now. We have struggles, but we also have the rise of the right. We have revolutions, but we also have the counter-revolution tightening its grip. Nothing static. Of course there'll be resistance. And everybody has seen that ordinary people have got the power to change the world and bring down dictators. And I have to say a word now for, and you'll hear some of them speak, for the revolutionary socialists in Egypt, who even in the most difficult circumstances have played an absolutely heroic role in the Egyptian revolution. But I tell you what, there's a lesson for us. Because at the moment, a year ago, when the military seized the advantage, when there was a vacuum, however hard they fought, the revolutionary socialists were just not big enough and rooted enough to be able to take advantage of the situation. The military were able to grab the initiative. And that is a lesson to us, because for us in the Socialist Workers' Party, building a revolutionary organisation in the here and now is what we're all about. And you see us everywhere, don't you? Some of you are not in the party, with our rickety paste tables and our paper, and it's a bedroom tax meeting or a strike or defending a nursery or an anti-fascist action. We're there in every struggle, in every political debate. Is it because we think that a little bedroom tax meeting in Bolton is going to bring down capitalism? No. Do we think that we can win victories even under the system at the moment? Absolutely. But most importantly, in every struggle, there is the kernel, There is the seed of future struggles. And I think, again, you see it tonight, because people learn lessons in struggle. And even though it's tough being on strike, oh boy, sometimes it can be the best. I mean, listening to you, talking about your strike and what it's done to you, that's what happens when you get into struggle. You stop feeling like a tiny little cog in a big system that seems impossible to challenge. Just getting through Monday to Friday, getting paid, getting drunk, getting up, going to work again, through the, you know, paying the bills. That's what they want you to feel like. A cog that can do nothing. But when you go into struggle, you can feel something else, can't you? You can learn that the sun lies about working class people like the miners did in the miners' strike. And these things become something that gives lessons for future victories. Struggle is built into capitalism. Marx said that because of the dynamic of the divide. But there's no guarantee of any of those struggles being victorious. That depends on the political ideas that shape the struggles. Do you have political leadership that says, fight on and get solidarity? Or do you have a political leadership that says, oh no, maybe we should wait and see. Maybe we should just have a little strike here for a day and then something else in 6 months' time. No, the sort of political leadership these struggles have is absolutely critical. A revolutionary party is absolutely critical. And there's no need now to read that in a book. We can see it in struggles around the world, what happens when the ruling class get back the initiative in a struggle, isn't it? We unashamedly say here that that means it's a difference of political leadership. But that's why, you know, you come to Marxism, and we hope some of you will consider joining us here. Because you see, the difference is, when you're in a revolutionary socialist party, you don't just sit and describe the world of pain that we live in. You feel part of a struggle to change it. Not just actively in every little struggle, and I hope all of us do that, but also having a vision that there can be something else. And it's because we know that there's a mass power of workers that can change things. Really, like today, only 100,000 times bigger is what the potential struggles could do it. And think how differently society would be run if everybody that was involved today ran it. Think how better it would be if everybody today ran society. Free from exploitation, racism, women's oppression, homophobia. That's what socialism would look like. It's pretty simple, really, in a nutshell. And we've got the ability to do it. I mean, the great writer, John Reed, a US journalist, he was around in the Russian Revolution in 1917. And he said this, he said, the masses of workers are capable not only of great dreams, but they have in them the power to make the dreams come true. And I believe our class has that power. But if we're going to win, we're going to have to be organised. And that's why we build the SWP. And you're all in this room because you want something to change. But if something's going to change, it's up to us. It's up to people like you and me and others, millions of us across this country. The system can't deliver it. The politicians can't deliver it. So I'll end with this. Join the struggle. Join the resistance. Join the SWP, because we don't want to just change the government. We want to change the world.